Okay, everyone, white bean mocha blondies. And I know some of you are thinking, Susan, you're crazy. You're going to put beans in a blondie or a brownie? Yes, we are. And there's a good reason for it, because the beans kind of stand in for the flour in the recipe. They add a lot of protein. You can't taste them when it's all done. It does not taste like beans, trust me. This is really a fun recipe. It's an easy one. I'm going to use the food processor today, but if you don't have one at home, you can easily do this one in the blender as well. So either way. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn on our oven, 350 degrees. We're going to get that preheated. And then I'm going to make these in an 8 by 8 inch square baking dish, okay? So just to prepare that one, I'm just going to spray it really lightly with a little bit of pan spray. If you want to, you can use a little oil and just wipe it off with the pan. Pan spray is easier for camera work. So get that ready. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna put in all kind of the moist ingredients into this brownie blondie recipe first. So I'm gonna start with a 15-ounce can of white beans. This is kind of a standard size can that you pick up in the grocery store. I'm using something called Great Northern beans. You can use a cannellini bean, you can use a navy bean. You probably don't want to use garbanzo beans. I think the flavor might be a little bit strong, but try it. You know, let me know. It might be interesting, it might be nutty, I'm not sure. But I chose to use these white beans, and I rinse them off and I drain them really well. So that's going in the food processor. And then we're going to add 3 eggs. And I've got, by the way, I have white eggs and I have brown eggs. And sometimes people ask me, is there a difference? And the answer is no. You know, some people think brown eggs are more natural, or like, I don't know what they think they do to white eggs. They don't bleach them. They just come from different chickens. And that's the reason that they're brown. All right, and then we're going to put in, we do have to add a little bit of sweetness here. So I'm going to add 1/4 cup of agave syrup. Now, if you want to use something else, you can use honey. I won't say, I don't know if it won't work, but I don't know if you want to use just regular sugar or brown sugar. It probably will work, but I think you need the moisture of the agave or the honey, and that's the reason that I chose to do that. So that's going in there. Then we're adding a little bit of oil. So I'm adding 3 tablespoons of a very neutral oil. I just used safflower. You can use canola oil if you want to. You could even use olive oil if you use a really mild one. That would work too. I know some of you like to use coconut oil, so just choose the fat that you want to. Another thing I didn't experiment with, sometimes I replace oil with avocado, and I think that, you know, that could possibly work as well. All right, and then I'm putting in 2 teaspoons of vanilla. So that's all of our kind of wet ingredients. If you end up doing this at home in your blender, just put everything in and blend it. But I wanted to do this because I really want to make sure that it's nice and smooth. So I'm gonna turn on the processor for just a minute. What I want to do is I want to get the beans really blended so that it's super, super smooth. It doesn't take that long, so we're going to turn that on real quick. Okay, I'm going to take this off so that the overhead camera can see this. It's really, really smooth already. It's got a really, really nice texture. It's got a nice smell already. I'm getting a little bit of the smell from the agave and the vanilla, which tastes or smells really good. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to turn this back on just for a minute because what I want to do is I'm going to add some oats. So far we've put in a can of beans, 3 tablespoons of our safflower oil, 3 eggs, 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And the 1/4 cup of agave syrup. So now what I'm going to add is 3 tablespoons of rolled oats. You can use the quick ones, the 1-minute ones, you can use the 5-minute ones. I'm going to add them while the machine is on because I want to be sure that they get well ground and well blended. But again, if you're doing this in the blender at home, don't worry about it. Just put it all in there and just blend the heck out of it and you should be fine. But I am going to add this just while this is on. This is just going to take a minute. So what the oats are doing, by the way, is they're giving a little bit of structure to our blondies. I probably made this recipe 20 times until I got it right. I tried it without oats, I tried it without flour, I tried it with oats, with flour, varying the amounts and so forth. It was funny because I thought flour would work better, but it didn't. The oats actually worked well, which was good because a lot of you are asking for things that are, kind of low in gluten. And oats are naturally gluten-free. Not all oats that you buy in the package are necessarily gluten-free. So if you have to really, really watch your gluten, look for your packages. And that's just because oats sometimes are processed in a facility where they also process things that have gluten. So there's possibility for that cross-contamination, but oats by themselves actually are naturally gluten-free. All right, so we've got our oats in there, and now we're just going to add 2 scoops. Let me get this out of the way so we can see our beautiful package. 2 scoops of our high-protein iced coffee. I'm using the mocha flavor. You can use the other, just the house blend flavor if you want to. I wanted that mocha flavor. And then I'm using 3 scoops of Rebuild Strength. And here in the US, we have this wonderful flavor called vanilla ice cream. And I thought this would be perfect for this because I wasn't going for a chocolatey brownie. But having said that, because I know some of you are not necessarily in the US and you may not have these products, is if you have Rebuild, I know you have the chocolate. So you can definitely use chocolate Rebuild in this recipe. That won't make any difference at all. It's just going to make a chocolatey, more like a brownie. If you don't have high protein iced coffee, you can replace that with 2 scoops of protein drink mix of your PDM. So that way you're going to end up with probably your chocolate Rebuild and vanilla or chocolate PDM, and you can do that, and it's going to work out perfectly. But I was playing around with some flavors that we have here. The last thing I'm going to add is a half a teaspoon of baking powder. I played around with this a lot too because at first I didn't put any in because I want these, for those of you who know brownies, you know that they're kind of dense and they're moist, and you don't really want them to rise too much. You don't want it to turn into a cake. But when I didn't put anything in, they were too flat and they were too dense, and if I put too much in, it got too cakey. So it took me a while to get the amount just right. So just a half a teaspoon baking powder, and then we're going to just blend that up, and then we're done, except we're going to put something fun on top. So let me put this back on, and we're going to blend this back up. If I can do this. I always struggle with the top. You'd think I'd get it by now. Okay, here we go. All right, so you can see that went really, really quickly. The batter is super, super smooth. It's really, really, it's nice. It's kind of the, it's, if you've made brownies at home, it's about the same texture. It might be a slightly bit runnier, maybe more like a really thick cake batter. It smells amazing because I'm getting that mocha smell from the high protein iced coffee, which is amazing. And as I said, I'm still picking up that vanilla smell, which I love. And now we are going to put this into our baking dish. Let me get this over here. It's always hard to remember everything I'm going to need before I get started. So here we go. So we're just going to scrape this in here, and we're going to put it in the oven. And while I'm doing that, let's talk for a minute about why did I choose this recipe. I said we're thinking about the marathon that we're sponsoring, which is coming up at the end of the month, and it got me thinking about, recovery snacks and how important that is. And so I was thinking about something like this because after you've been working out really, really hard, there's some things that are really important for your body. You need to replenish your carbohydrates because you've used up a lot of carbs. There's sugar in your bloodstream that's been fueling your muscles, and you've kind of run out of that if you've gone on a long run or you've been working out really hard. And if you've been working your muscles, you also need some protein to help those muscles to repair themselves. And so this combination of protein and carb is so, so important when you're talking about, eating for recovery. And so my thought was, well, it would be great to have something that would satisfy that, give us our protein, give us our carbs, but also kind of feel like a treat, and yet at the same time still be, healthy. And so these, as I said, these bean brownie recipes have been around for a long time, but the white bean ones had not only seen a few of those. And I thought this would really be a good thing to try, because what it's doing is, as I said, it's giving us our carbs, it's giving us our protein. We've got a lot of fiber in there from the beans and also from the oats. And you don't want to eat a lot of high fiber before you go out and exercise, because that could cause a little bit of gastrointestinal upset. But afterwards is a perfectly good time to get some fiber in there, because that's going to cause like a slower release of those carbs into your bloodstream. The quick carbs you're going to get, there's some natural sugar that's in the products. There's some sugar from the agave. So you're going to get that quick recovery right away. And then you're going to get that sustained release of carbohydrate because you've got that fiber from the beans. So it ends up really, giving you everything you need. The last thing I'm putting on top, by the way, we're getting a little indulgent, but not really. I'm putting just a quarter of a cup of dark chocolate chips on top. And I'm doing that obviously because these are blondies and that's how blondies are made, but also because dark chocolate has some compounds in it that actually act as anti-inflammatory. Now, of course, we're using chocolate chips, and so there is some sugar and there is some fat in there, but the darker the chocolate, the more benefit that you get, as opposed to, say, a milk chocolate, because the proportion of chocolate obviously is going to be higher because you don't have as much fat and as much sugar in a dark chocolate. And so, I thought, well, we can put a little bit, because what that's going to do, as I said, it'll give us a little quick energy, but it's going to give us a little bit of those anti-inflammatories. And when we're all done with this, and when I give you the nutrition information after we come back after the video, you'll see that this really hits that sweet spot when we talk about ratios of carbohydrate to protein after a workout. We're always looking for at least 2 to 1. So in other words, twice as much carbs as protein in grams, at least 2 to 1, sometimes even as high as 3 to 1. So this really hit the spot perfectly. All right, so these are ready to go in the oven. I'm going to go put them into my 350 degree oven. We're going to bake these about 23 to 25 minutes. It's going to depend on your oven. You don't want to over bake these because you don't want them to get dry. So just watch them, and I'm going to pull out the other one so you can see, because they don't get super, super dark brown. All right, so I'm going to put these in the oven. I'm going to pull out the other one. So let me do that. And here's the one that I made earlier today. And what you can see, get it right under the camera there, what you can see with this one is that we know it's done because you can see that it started to pull away from the edges of the pan. But you can see that it's also just kind of brown around the edges. It's not really, really brown on top, but it is brown around the edges. And what it tends to do, that baking powder is going to make it rise a little bit, and then when you pull it out, it's going to sink a little bit. That's actually what we want, because a good brownie or a good blondie should be dense. I have a plate of them here. You can see they're not high like a cake. They're really, they're dense like a brownie, and that's kind of what we're after. All right, so let's go ahead and cut these. And as I said, I've been making these for weeks, and my husband's been enjoying the fruits of all of my labor. I can tell you just from cutting these, they're nice and dense, but I can tell that they're also very moist, and that's really exactly what we're going for. I'm going to cut these into 12 pieces. You can do them larger or smaller if you want to, but that, when I calculated the nutrition information, that kind of gave me exactly what I wanted. So I'm going to cut these into 12. You can see it's very gooey, just even that little bit of chocolate on top. And they're releasing very nicely from the pan as well. So let's go ahead and pull one out. And as I said, you can see that it's not tall like a cake. It's nice and dense. That's really actually exactly what we're going for. We're going for something that's dense and moist and delicious. So I'm going to dig in. I wish you were here to have a bite with me. And I will tell you that when I first made these, I thought, I know they're going to taste like beans. I'm sure they're going to taste like beans. And they don't. And if you gave this to someone and you said, this has something in it that's really healthy and good for you, and I'm not going to tell you what it is, they would never guess that you had white beans in here. It's very moist. I've got this really nice mocha flavor because, again, I've got the flavor from the high protein iced coffee. The vanilla rebuild just serves as sort of a nice background, a nice sweet base in there. And of course, you've got a little bit of chocolate on top. I'm not going to eat any more. It'll make you too hungry. These are amazing. Now, these also can keep if you want to put these away, if they don't all get eaten right away. Just go ahead, let them cool completely before you put them in a covered container, because otherwise they'll kind of steam and they'll get a little moist on top. But they will keep for a couple of days, and they're really amazing. So I hope you guys try them. As I said, you've got some possible substitutions with your different flavors of rebuild. As I said, you can try different high protein iced coffee, or you can substitute PDM. You can, by the way, use other beans. You know, as I mentioned in the intro, this was really designed to be a riff on black bean brownies, which a recipe for those have been around for a long time. So if you decided to go that route, you could just use the same recipe and use your black beans and use your chocolate rebuild, and you'd be good to go. Anyway, don't go away, because when we come back, I'm going to tell you the whole nutrition breakdown for every one of these amazing white bean mocha blondies, and you will be surprised at how much nutrition we packed into these. So don't go away. I'll be right back.